Boy oh boy, I'm excited to see this movie. Captain Writ versus the Grammar Nazi. Should be a rollicking good time.
I'm excited too. But please, please, Donald, don't talk throughout the whole thing like you usually do. I'd like to actually hear the movie.
I know, David. I just get excited. I like to express my thoughts in the moment.
I get it. But just save that moment for an hour and a half, okay?
Okay, alright, I'll try. I know how annoying it is, so dang it, I'm gonna give it a red-hot go. I'm gonna give all...
Shh! The previews are starting.
Oh, come on, David, I can't even talk during the previews? Shh! They're all online anyways.
I want to enjoy them, Donald. I don't watch them.
Ugh, fine.
This summer, just when you thought it was safe to scream in space, the extraterrestrial jaws come munching forward.
They're everywhere! They're everywhere!
We must protect the visitors. We have to close the space beach.
But Space Beach season is coming, and I refuse to close our space beaches during Space Beach season. It's our most lucrative financial quarter. Ah! The visitors are getting slaughtered!
Space beach season is ruined.
We're gonna need a bigger spaceship!
Coming to theaters everywhere. Space Sharks, Part 7, The Revenge, in 5D.
Boy, that looks dumb.
Fine, you can talk during the few seconds in between previews. I'll allow that.
Aw, thank you, David. So yeah, Space Sharks, huh? Hollywood's running out of ideas, I tell ya.
I'm pretty sure that's a remake of the original Space Shark film series from the 80s, too.
Ah, yeah, the 80s. Back when movies were real, with plastic animatronics and cheap puppets. None of that fluid and lifelike CGI that's ruining the film industry today.
Yeah, it's the worst. Anyway, shut up. Next preview's starting.
Fine.
This Valentine's Day, she's looking for love. He's looking for love. But they still hate each other.
I hate your face!
I hate your voice. Will they put aside their hatred and follow their hearts?
I want romance, but not from you!
I also want romance. Where is there a suitable partner? I sure don't see one here. Find out if love will conquer all in Totally Healthy Relationship. Coming soon to a theater near you. I yearn for a romance like that one.
Me too, David. We'll get into healthy relationships someday, surely.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, if only life were like the movies.
Oh, if only. Alright, next preview, here we go.
This summer, it's coming. The biggest, loudest, boss you've ever heard. R.I.P. ears, coming soon.
Well, I guess you can talk now, Donald. I can't hear anything.
What? I can't hear you!
I said I can't hear anything!
What?
Okay, now I can hear.
Yeah, me too. Whew. That movie looks pretty cool though, huh?
Yeah, we should go see that this summer.
Totally.
Totally! Alright, now the movie's starting, so shut up!
Okay, fine, I'll shut up. Sheesh. Now, insert parody title here. Pictures presents Captain Writ versus the Grammar Nazi. Man, those are some big explosions, huh?
That's it, Donald! I can't take you constantly talking and ruining the movie for everyone! Ooh, what's that? Ooh, those explosions look cool! Ooh, I just have to keep talking all the time! Talk! I'm leaving! I'll watch this movie myself some other time. God, I can't believe you, Donald. I can't believe it. You just refuse to shut up during the movie.
David, oh, David, come on! Come on! Oh, he's gone. Well, I guess that was a big explosion. I suppose I'll watch this movie myself. This movie looks dumb, honestly. Can't believe I paid for 5D tickets. Ugh.
Jeez, Donald, that movie only took you like 2 hours. About time you showed up to our recording session.
Well, what do you know? It's a 2-hour movie, so that makes sense. It wasn't that great, by the way. You didn't miss much. I'm sorry, though.
Well,
I'm so sorry.
I'm still gonna go see it myself. That way I don't have to
You
deal with
always
your
like to
comments.
judge things for yourself, and let me guess, afterwards there'll be a...
And that way I can actually, keep my streak of watching every Captain Writ movie.
Of course, and then afterwards they'll be like, it's better than I expected.
Very true. That is totally me. Anyways,
all right.
We're back on, aren't we?
We certainly are. Sorry about that once again. Anyways, welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of the Writ, the show where we really talk about our feelings, and our past failings, and our deepest regrets, and all the times we've failed our loved ones, and my lost chinchilla. Oh, Fluffy Butt, I'm so sorry. I didn't see that monster truck barreling towards you. I'm so sorry, Fluffy Butt.
Get a grip. Good. Come on.
Okay, fine.
Donald, come on.
Yeah.
With a name like Fluffy Butt, I'm amazed you took it seriously as a pet anyway.
You don't understand.
You're right, I don't.
Well, at least you admit it. Anyway.
But I do understand that we got to do our regular segment.
We certainly
so are you
do.
Emotionally recovered?
Hold on. Yeah, I'm good.
Your chinchilla that got run over by a monster truck.
It's amazing. The monster trucks usually have those giant big wheels.
The wheel
There's
was the tire was probably bigger than Fluffy Butt itself.
Yeah, exactly. And the suspensions are very high, so
yeah.
it's like there's an intentional
chinchillas
effort.
are tiny, so I mean, come on, that's like par for the course. That's like occupational hazard in getting a chinchilla, dude.
It's true. As we all know, chinchillas are prone to just wandering across the street, so they're just drawn to it. Like
I have a feeling that's part of the reason you named it something so silly, because you kind of expected
I knew it was
this might happen.
Die by
Anyway.
monster truck. Okay, so
Well, I guess you can't predict that.
I'm still not over it. But anyways, yeah, we rip off from this month. You go first.
All right. Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the big one I want to rip off from this month is Legends of Tomorrow. Basically, how the Arrow versus B team kind of got their own show. They introduced these side characters in Arrow, Flash, etc., and they start using them more by giving them their own starring vehicle. I really liked that. The stakes are real thanks to
Spoilers redacted.
dying and crazy character interactions between the people who are, kind of thrown into this thing. I also got caught up on superhero flicks on my long trip back to the States for the holidays. And back from that, you're right. So I have to throw out mentions to I love the self-irreverence of Deadpool 2. I loved Ant-Man and the Wasp for the playset fights. I'm definitely hoping to include some blasé everyday use thing in a major battle, kind of like the Suitcase Lab.
Or a salt
that popped
shaker.
up in the middle of San Francisco.
Right, or a salt shaker.
Aquaman's incredible depth of ocean visuals.
Yes.
Oh, and thank God they made that costume look so incredible.
They did a good job. I'll get to that.
Considering how silly it normally looks, the major scale thing. Well, I mean, Momoa's physique really helped, but that's a different
Scale?
story.
You're talking about
And-
Ant-Man still? Dun, dun, dun. I don't.
No. You can make puns too. And the joy that was seeing Peter Parker as a more age-appropriate character in Spider-Man Homecoming.
It was good.
Not that I really did like the Tobey Maguire films.
Well, of
I've
course.
not seen Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, but I do like how Tom Holland felt like a genuine teenager, even though he'd think he's like...
He's 20, yeah, so... I love when those people are, like, saying, like, oh, he's too young. I'm like, no, you're just used to teenagers in movies looking like 30-year-olds.
Well, okay, my favorite show growing up was Power Rangers, that or Thomas the Tank Engine, but Power Rangers, they cast people who are, like, late 20s to play high school.
Well, that's usually how it is,
You know,
so...
I don't quite remember noticing that at the time, but it's really obvious now. You know,
Well, it's like that.
being in that age group myself,
Right.
it's really obvious that people are kind of play acting at being a teenager.
Well, it's like
thing.
that
But anyway.
Nostalgia Critic joke when he was talking about Saved by the Bell. And he was talking about this episode where they have to get fake D's to get to a bar because he meets this girl that's over 18. And you have to get fake IDs to go in there. And then Nostalgia Critic like, could someone tell me why they need fake IDs to prove they're 18 when they're so obviously 24? So... yeah.
Well, I mean, if you're going to get carded. But I also managed to watch the original Daredevil film, the, one with Ben Affleck.
I mean, again,
I
you
say original film.
Yeah, you say this
There
like there's been
are
another
other
Daredevil
movies. Well, I mean, if you count Marvel's Netflix
That's not a film, though, but...
Daredevil, it's not a film. It's not a film. I'm kind of hoping that he'll show up in one, though.
yeah, I'm hoping to. It'll be...
However... that very, very noticeable CGI was a little uncomfortable.
That's the CGI, especially bad CGI, dates really badly. Or like CGI where they don't...
Well, I mean, like, there's this thing where they're doing these jumps, and, like, the body literally becomes almost out of proportion in that moment as they're doing the flip.
I was thinking...
like, that's just
that,
wrong.
like, because when you said bad CGI in Daredevil, that was the scene that came to my mind before you even said that was the scene. It's like, oh, the CGI jumps! So, yeah.
So that was kind of uncomfortable. But I also managed to watch the rebooted Fantastic Four. And now I'm...
Oh, yeah.
Well...
that masterpiece that you liked for some reason.
It was better than I expected.
I mean, that is what you say. I mean, to be fair, in this instance, your expectations were probably in the toilet, so...
Well, I don't know about in the toilet, but they weren't very high. But, I'm actually kind of disappointed they didn't pursue the sequel, despite how most people thought of it. I recognize
it also bombed
very
like
well
crazy,
received.
so there's a reason why I didn't pursue a sequel.
No, I get it. As I said, it's not like it was received terribly well. But, they had...
There's a crash test
They had
Doomy.
just enough there. Crash test Doomy?
Yeah, because Dr. Doom looks like a crash test dummy.
Oh. All right, I see that reference, I guess. I haven't heard that term before. But anyway, yeah, so, it was kind of nice to, as I mentioned earlier, seeing all the Captain Writ flicks. I'm trying to catch up on most of the superhero
Well, of course.
I made a lot of progress this trip, so it's kind of nice.
Captain Writ versus the Grammar Nazi is much, much better than the rebooted Fantastic Four. So you'll probably love it.
All right, I'll look forward to that then.
Anyways.
Especially without your commentary.
I'm sorry. I have a wonderful mouth with wonderful.
You
thoughts.
have a problem.
I have wonderful thoughts. I have a wonderful problem. And I have a wonderful thing to rip off from this month.
All right, go ahead.
So it's Aquaman. I watched it too, believe it or not. And I
Wow, really?
I absolutely
You only beat me to
loved
think by
it.
months.
Like, it's definitely one of my favorite movies of the year. Like, I loved the bonkersness of it, the total shameless commitment to its comic book roots, the endlessly creative designs of the armors, creatures, weapons, vehicles, structures, and the absolutely glorious final battle.
I found it fascinating that the Atlanteans split into okay, we call them Atlanteans, I guess, but there are so many different, factions, and they all look distinct.
Right,
I
exactly.
love that.
Some of them are, fish people, some of them are crab people, some of them are, weird trench people, whatever they're supposed to look like. I don't look like...
Whatever those are supposed
I've heard they
to
look
be,
like
yeah.
the xenomorphs from Alien, so people have called them xenomorphs.
And they spelled it with a C, of course, but that's
well,
hilarious.
they call them
Anyway.
CEA, so...
Right, well, yeah.
Okay.
No, you mean SCA?
That's what I meant, sorry. I'm a writer, guys. I can spell.
You should see some of his stories before I end up looking them over.
I'm a published author, guys. I'm so good. I'm a 3-time published author.
What?
Anyways. But yeah, so the final battle was so glorious. Throughout the last 15 minutes, I had such a big, stupid grin on my face. It was just so great. And also, and this is a bit of a spoiler, so skip ahead about 20 seconds, but there are surprise dinosaurs in it, which automatically boosts my love for a movie. When a movie's great, but then there's already adds dinosaurs to it, it's like the dinosaur multiplier. It's if it's great and then it's dinosaurs
only for
something
people
else.
who care about them.
What?
All right, fair enough. Well, I was gonna say it's because it's you. There's a dinosaur.
Of course, it is.
I wouldn't add one, but
Of course.
that's me.
Anyways, there's so much I'd love to rip off from Aquaman. I could do multiple episodes with it, but for this episode, I'll say what I rip off of it is the sheer earnestness of it. Like, rather than be self-aware, like it could have been, and how dumb some of the stuff might come across, like the costumes, the concepts, and names like Aquaman, Ocean Master, and Black Manta.
To be fair, Ocean Master and Black Manta had basis in the story, which I really liked. They added.
Right, I know, but
Aquaman's didn't come from anywhere in particular, but Ocean Master, I really loved the story. They added a story to that.
Right.
And Black Manta's as well.
Right. Well, like they made
Sorry,
Ocean
go ahead.
Master a title that you could earn by conquering all the kingdoms.
By getting a majority of the
Right.
kingdoms
Rather
to
than
follow
I think in
you.
the comics it was just a name of a character. Like I don't remember.
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. I don't remember clearly, but
Anyways, but rather than be self-aware about how dumb some of this is, it instead opts to use them proudly, giving viewers no choice but to respect its commitment. Like when Aquaman emerges from the waterfall in the classic costume, like you were saying, complete with it does look epic, but it has the bright orange shirt and green pants,
Scales shirt
and
scaly shirt.
Yep, it's orange, bright orange, and then the green pants. It's treated with such earnest reverence that rather than laugh, you're in awe. It's the perfect.
Didn't there be when this was so
Yes.
Didn't some applause break out when he bust out of the waterfall?
Yes,
with the
I
costume
believe
on?
so. Also, some applause happened at the end of the movie, a lot more, but that's to be fair.
Well, I mean, yeah.
But still, like that was just like, it's just the original Aquaman. All he needs to do is ride a seahorse, and it's the classic. I mean, he does do that at one
He'll
point.
talk to the fishies. Well, he does, but was it a seahorse or was it a hippocampus?
It was like a sea dragon.
They tied
thing.
a lot of mythology, and they tied in a ton of mythology to this film as well, which is really intriguing because obviously Atlantis is a thing.
It's a Greek myth originally.
Both of us being Age of Mythology players acknowledge as like a separate, quote unquote, separate civilization, but not to the scale that they used in this movie.
Right?
Which
No,
is really cool.
exactly. But like it's just the way they did it in this movie. It was like to like treat it so earnestly and like such. It's the perfect way to handle a character like Aquaman, one who's been mocked for decades for being lame. But much like Ant-Man, though, I feel like said mocking will die down quickly after the success of this movie. So.
Quite possible, especially because of who they cast to play Aquaman.
Jason Momoa, what a beefcake!
He is totally beefcake.
And also
He's
very, very
incredible.
charismatic and likable. So I'm not in
in
love,
real life,
listeners.
too,
I swear.
so I've heard.
I let me go find my very real girlfriend, who's very, very.
Something about man crush for the year. You said this is your favorite. Well, we aren't doing the Witties. Spoiler alert.
We aren't.
might
We aren't
be
doing it
the
this
Witties
year. We just thought it'd be too predictable, and also, who cares?
And also, Jason Momoa would win in a landslide for guy you.
I
feel
don't
gay
know.
For, so.
Thor was pretty. It's always nice to look at. Paul Rudd, he's always delightful.
Paul Rudd.
He's
always delightful, but is he really that high on your list?
Let's see. Thanos, I've
How
mentioned
about
before.
no?
Thanos, I mentioned before. The big sleeveless tee.
Oh jeez. Oh, that chin that's shaped kind of like ridges on a hill. But anyway,
such a strong jaw.
very strong jaw.
I'm
It would not
swooning
break
already.
even if he snapped
Sorry,
it.
Aquaman, but
All right,
Thanos
anyway.
wins. Big purple muscles.
Just in time for the movie where he did. Anyway.
All right. Well,
So, should we move on to our next
yes.
segment?
What
then?
will we at the Wit? Dang it! What?
What we the Red Twit have read?
Yes, thank you. It's been a while since I messed it up, and now you.
It's back.
It's back. Yeah. What have you written?
Yeah. Anyway, so I got the most recent episode of Starburst back from my co-author, so I went over it with him. While I was at home, I got to see him too. It was really
Nice.
Worked up on cleaning some of the prior stuff. I'm also planning the next episode, though I have yet to write it, and this is where you add the boo track.
Boo. Boo. Nah, that's fine.
We're getting into the end game.
Yes.
Additionally, we spent quite a bit of time talking about how to proceed to the end. So there's a fire underneath me to work on it soon. Now I just need to make the time to do it.
Well, you better do it. That fire's getting pretty hot.
No, I was going to say that fire might be dying down if I'm not careful.
No, I mean it's gonna burn you.
Because it's
gonna
a
burn you to a crisp.
metaphorical fire
Your life
as opposed to a
depends
literal fire.
on getting this done.
Just like fluffy butts dependent on getting run over.
Don't you remind me of fluffy butts. So,
You just gotta
may
get
laugh,
over it. Get yourself a
but-
new chinchilla and name it. Get yourself a new chinchilla and name it Fluffy. Beep.
Fluffy ass, yeah. Anyways.
Sorry, Donald, not to bring up bad memories. So what
it's
have you?
okay.
What have you writ?
Thank you. I have writ the final Megazoic book. I said I'll wait a bit before revealing the name and description, but by this point, okay, it's a bit of a peek behind the curtain. We were originally going to do this episode a while back, but
Well, not a while ago, but originally we recorded this.
and then I was dumb, and then I didn't save what we had done so far, and then my computer did an update on its own. It's like, we're installing important updates, and it restarted everything, and then it didn't autosave. And you know how much of that update I've noticed? Nothing. I hate those auto updates. They do nothing but hurt you.
Okay, well, they do stuff to the apps that run behind the scenes, I suppose.
I'm
but
sure.
Sorry, back
anyways,
in.
the reason why I bring this up, though, is that I actually am going to reveal the final Megazoic book this Monday on my professional Facebook account. But will I get this edited and updated by then?
Find out, listeners. Follow him on Facebook.
You know what? I'm gonna do it. I don't know why I won't, because therefore it forces me to procrastinate. So I'm gonna do it. You ready for the final Megazoic book reveal? Remember, this is where you do the yay.
Oh, right. Sorry, let me get my appropriate. Voice
Good
on.
work. Have a cookie. 3 times we've done this, it never gets old. Okay, so my final book. But
Yay!
let me say the final book.
Yay!
Megazoic. An Era's End.
Yay!
I said that kind of quickly because I was waiting for you to interrupt me. So I'm going to Megazoic. An Era's.
Yay!
I'm going to stop recording right now. We're done. No, it's fine.
Okay, so you want me to interrupt you, but then when I interrupt you, you decide to say, nope, it's over. Forget it.
Okay,
Screw you.
I don't want you to interrupt me now. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Megazoic. An Era's End.
Yay! What?
An Era's End.
What?
An end of an era.
No, really, I can figure out from
It's
the
an
grammar.
era.
Thank you.
And it's ending.
Oh my god.
Normally at this point I'd reveal the back of the book, but I don't know if I don't really want to do that. I mean, I could.
I was about to say, that's entirely up to you, but we're already in almost half an hour into this recording.
Well, I'm going to actually, and also I'm,
You realize your wallet and phone are blocking your face? I can't see your face. Not that it particularly matters.
I'm glad you really want to see my beautiful face. See.
Well, I mean, it's more fun to look and see what you're saying if I can actually get it.
Right. Okay. No, I get you. Okay, so, anyways, I'm going to read the back of the book that I have planned here. I've got it here. So, ready?
Yay!
Glad you're ready. Okay. The world recovers from Zulgarin's last attack. 9 years have passed since his horrific... Oh, by the way, spoiler alert for the other books.
Oh, Jesus. If you haven't, buy it on Amazon.com.
9 years have passed since his horrific culling, and the great dinosaur cities have become mighty fortresses. Life goes on. Hatchlings grow. Relationships build. While losses are not forgotten, society marches forward regardless. They live under the protection of the Red Lightning, the global force field constructed by Cortan the Sign Raptor. Despite their advancement, he knows they cannot sit idle. They banish Zulgarin to the stars beyond, but with his godlike power, it is only a matter of time before he strikes again. That time has come. Zulgarin returns to the Earth, more ferocious than ever. Every civilian is endangered by his assault. Every building topples under his might. The monstrous, undying Stegosaurus attacks now, and will not leave until he is the last dinosaur alive. A titanic final battle will soon take place, one that will forever shift the future of the planet.
Maybe even tectonically.
Actually, I also really like the tagline I came up for this one. You know, like all the other ones I've had millions of years ago, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, like, the first one was millions of years ago, dinosaurs ruled the earth, just not the way we thought.
Yes.
This one is millions of years ago, dinosaurs fought a battle that paved the way for humanity. Hey, ring endorsement.
It's grandiose. It's grandiose. Give it that. But paving the way for humanity seems kind of too big for its britches, considering how much time theoretically happens between it and
look,
development of humanity.
This book.
Okay, I get. It's cool.
It's not just that it's cool. It's actually right, because if that meteor hadn't hit the Earth,
spoiler alert. By the way,
if there's a meteor, there might not be. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to say what it is. So that's spoiler, non-spoiler alert. All right. If the meteor did not hit the Earth, humans would not evolve. If the extinction didn't happen, dinosaurs would continue to live on, and humans would not evolve. So yes,
they would not have. Yeah,
it does pave the way for humanity.
Anyways,
oh man, all this recording is just sad what we've all done. It really brings a tear to my eye. Just how sad we've done this whole once again, I'm knocked over by my own ambition.
Your forced segues.
I'm felled by my own ambition. With the
Pride
segues.
cometh before the fall, sir.
This is just sad.
Come on, we're having fun. Why is this bad?
Speaking of sad,
you know what else is sad?
we're gonna talk about tear-jerking moments. Bet you hope you have a tissue, listeners.
Well, I mean, unless we're reading them, which that'd be different. But I suppose it'd be a good thing to talk about. So we're going to talk about all those sniffles, the waterworks, the eye leaks, the dusty rooms, the bawlings, and the sob fests.
I'm confused. What are we talking about? You didn't say it so that well. No, I wrote that, so it's
So whose fault is it?
It's mine, or I'm so sad. Oh, fluffy pot!
Emotion, what separates a human story from a robot story.
Unless it's WALL-E.
Or even a story where humans are in dinosaur scales. Unless it's WALL-E, of course.
Yes, WALL-E.
We all feel emotion.
Yes, WALL-E is...
We all yearn for things. Sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. It triggers a response of some kind. A deep response, not just a superficial one. We feel for characters that aren't ourselves, and it's our duty as writers to make us care. Us being the audience. For what happens in the story.
Right, like the 8 deadly words for a response to writing, and I've read this before, these are what they're actually called the 8 deadly words, are, I don't care what happens to these people. And make them care. One way to add emotion to a story is through tear-jerking moments, but done poorly they just seem artificial and superfluous, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to make them right. I mean, we think. I don't know. We'll find out.
Well, we are better than you, listeners, so we'll do our best.
I'm still not good. I'm not.
3-time published author, and he's not good. Well, maybe this is the part where we mention he's
I was about to say I'm self-published. The only one who thought I was good, apparently, is me, and I don't even think I'm that good.
Well, I was about to say, you're not really rivaling your hated author from the Inheritance.
He's not that bad. I don't really hate him anymore. He was amateurish, but I can't deny that he had a passion.
Going through it all yourself makes you realize how much better he was.
Well, he had a passion, and he had a story he wanted to tell. He told it like very amateurishly, but he.
Well, I mean, when you can describe the plot of Eragon with Star Wars and the characters with Lord of the Rings-ish names, it's pretty,
it's not good.
Not formulaic,
but
it's derivative, is what I want to say.
But at least it's not harmful to society, like 50 Shades of Grey. And so,
well, that depends. Depends on that's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
I mean, it's just like 50 Shades of Grey, and even Twilight to an extent. They get unrealistic expectations of romance in the minds of girls, and so that's why it's harmful. So that's a topic for another day.
Well, I think that romance novels in general, dime store romance tales, have kind of created this, myth about how love works. However, I've heard, in fact, I'm not even sure I want to say this on a family-friendly podcast.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Well, you're intrigued, so you'll hear it either way. I've heard that romance novels are for women what porn is for men.
That's interesting.
Well, I mean, if you think about the difference between...
So what are romance novels for men, then?
Child play? No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
That's bad. Oh, my God.
I'm not that kind, Jesus.
Oh, my God. What's wrong with you, David?
Not wrong with me. I heard the quote from somewhere else.
I always knew there was something
No,
amiss
anyway.
with you. Anyways, so what are...
No, but but seriously though, because it sets up this expectation. However, consider that in the lives of men and women are usually, I say usually,
Yes.
far more reserved about things. They like approaching this without saying it. They're very subtle. And romance novels are a good way to reflect that they want to feel this feeling as well.
Right, yes.
Whereas guys are just like, show me the good stuff. I don't care.
Well,
Again, I don't think that any
are
of
you
this should make it
saying
into the podcast.
that the women are all more about the emotions?
Okay, fine. If you want to force a segue
Then
back
speaking
to
of
what we're trying to talk about, then
emotions-
maybe.
What are situations that make us specifically feel emotional?
I really shudder to think of how much of that conversation you're leaving in this final cut, by the way.
So, we're going to talk about tear-jerking moments, starting with what are situations that make us, as in Donald and David, specifically feel emotional. So, David.
And keep in mind, listeners, that Donald over there grew up with 3 older sisters so
And
he's very
0
good at
brothers.
tapping into his feminine side.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that was kind of the implication. I would have said it both at the same time.
Right.
But anyway, I only grew up with the one older brother, so I'm not as necessarily good at it, but I have gotten better at learning that real men know when to cry.
Right.
So, with that said, I am a sucker for reunions. If every circumstance just invades until they finally are able to come back together with swelling orchestral background music, I tend to feel my eyes well with tears.
Right.
Along those lines, where children are taken captive by some force or event, notably in Tokusatsu, the unbridled joy when the parent sees their child healthy and whole is affecting.
Yes.
I believe that any situation where you would feel like crying in real life can be emotional to others as well.
Of course.
But obviously the scale is different in each reader / listener / viewer.
Right.
Loss is never something to be trifled with. And eulogies can be beautiful if tear-inducing.
Right.
If not tear-inducing, I meant to say.
Well,
whoops.
I was going to say...
We'll try that again.
There's actually... On that note, though, there's been a few times where I've seen eulogies that actually are kind of funny, because sometimes people view it as, like, a celebration of their life. And, like, they talk about some of the more embarrassing stories, but, like, not in, like, a disrespectful way, but, like, in a...
To share a side that people might not.
Right, exactly. Or, like, to say, like, oh, remember that
make
time
light
when
of a
he did
situation.
this? And I was like, oh, that's right. So,
Yeah, no,
yeah, eulogies can be, they're bittersweet.
Personally, they can be beautiful if not tear-inducing. It just depends on how you eulogize the person. Sometimes it is comedic. Sometimes it is heartfelt.
Right.
Like, I remember trying to speak after my grandfather had passed, and that was very, very tough. But,
Yeah, no, I can
especially
imagine.
high on my scale is the bittersweet stuff, where one good thing may be at least dulled somewhat by the presence of an equally important bad thing. Not that it's a particularly happy idea, but, mom dying in childbirth, for example.
Right.
But the child's okay.
Well, that's good.
And so the joy of having the kid is kind of negated somewhat by, your spouse is gone.
Right.
In that event. But anyway, another one that I particularly feel emotional about is reconciliation.
Right.
This is a bit of a personal story. My older brother and I don't always see eye to eye, but there was one really big argument that had us shouting at each other. Not going into more details at this time. But by the end of it, I was in tears and spent emotionally, and we bro-hugged it out.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that
which was really cool.
Ending. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been bad, because it was intractable. He would not change his mind. I would not change mine. So we just had to settle to see things differently and realize that, our affection for each other as siblings was more important than the argument we had.
Right. Of course.
I hope that somebody seeing that cared and was invested in our lives would be teary-eyed seeing something like that, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, of course. Well, as you said, though, it is different for every person, but, that's why it's kind of nice for us to mention what makes us specifically feel emotional. Maybe a lot of listeners agree, maybe they don't.
And there are plenty of things that we probably wouldn't consider emotional that you do, and this is not attempting to say that it's not important or unemotional, just that for us it doesn't trip on their register.
Right.
But speaking of which, that was my opinion. How about yours, Don?
Okay, well, basically, what makes me feel emotional is when someone is hurting, either emotionally or physically, and I feel like they aren't getting...
I love that you had emotional there.
Well,
it's not just physical pain.
Right, of course. Well, it's hurt can be a lot of different things, and I feel like
True.
It's especially bad if they're not getting the help they deserve. I'm a naturally empathetic guy, not to brag, listeners, but I have feelings.
You do.
And I hate hearing stories about people who are going through torment or misery, and especially if it feels like I can't do anything to help them.
I mean, if the solution is so simple as simply having the right resources, that's nearly tragic.
It is. If someone is they need money and they don't have money,
but somebody could give them money and it would solve most of the problem.
But they just don't.
That's really sad.
Yeah.
You really like moving that into my way, don't you?
What?
You really like moving the phone wallet combo into my way, don't you?
I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. Hold on. I'm too sad. Nah. Okay, so also when someone is under intentional abuse and pain and is helpless to escape, so children or animals, someone
Captive children, folks. Not that we endorse this.
Right.
Not that we endorse this at all.
But what? What did you say?
I said captive children, folks.
Yes.
Not that
and
we
also
endorse this at all.
an abused animal. An animal can't escape where it is, and it's just...
Well, I mean, some might have the means if there's some other measures not taken.
Right, but especially...
if there's a fence, they can't run, but otherwise they could
seeing
go.
an animal just broken is just the worst.
I mean, Fluffy Butt just ran out in front of that monster truck. I'm sorry. Did I bring up a bad memory again?
I don't think you are sorry, because you'll just keep doing it.
Maybe I will.
But in terms of happy emotions...
Sure.
Because I feel like the Writ is a positive, feel-good podcast full of humor and cringy charm.
Especially cringy charm, yes.
Especially cringy. One time I showed this bit of this podcast to someone at my new geek meetup, and they just had their face in their hands. I was like, that's the best compliment I could have ever had.
All these things no, we don't actually endorse this, but we're gonna say it anyway.
Anyways, in terms of happy
we laugh too much. We laugh too much for this to be a sad podcast all the time. Sorry to bring up bad memories. So in terms of other, feel good emotions that make you emotional, what about them?
I get emotional when someone fights real hard for something, a real hard struggle, and it pays off. Such as a romance, a personal goal, jobs, survival even. Or reuniting with loved ones, like you, with the reunions, yeah.
Hey, reunions, they're great.
And a moment, and I like it when a moment is given for the characters to bask in their success.
Sure.
And also, and this is a personal thing, this is really weird, but I really like seeing crowds cheer or gasp or laugh together, even in movies. Not so much reactions to movies, but in the movies themselves. I really like reactions to movies itself. I like watching these YouTube videos that they record the audio of a screening, not the video because that's illegal, but they record the audio, and they and then when the DVD comes out, they play the audio at the same part of the video of the movie, and so you could see people's reactions to certain things, and I just seeing people laugh or cheer or cry. It makes me feel with joy. Like I like seeing the unity that presents, that we all feel during that moment. But also, like, even in movies where it's just there is a crowd within a movie, for some reason it just wells me up. Just makes see people so happy. Like in
Okay, I'm curious though. Does that extend to when you got a ton of extras running around from some like gigantic thing behind them?
Sure, but no, it doesn't. I guess, and like when it's in a movie, I like it when there's a crowd that's cheering. Like for instance, the example I can think of in Jurassic World, the first Jurassic World, there's a scene where they're watching the mosasaur feed on the shark in the show, and then the mosasaur arrives, it leaps up, it grabs the shark, and it splashes down. Everyone just starts going nuts and cheering. For some reason, I just really like that. Like, I like how they're so happy to see this mosasaur.
To reference another one that we talked about earlier, the final scene where he's standing on the sub or whatever it is that they fought on, and the whole of the undersea kingdom is like cheering on Aquaman.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, King Arthur! And I'm like, oh, subtle, guys.
Oh, that was such a subtle reference. Although instead of a sword, he pulled out a trident from, this trench that couldn't possibly exist. But, quibbles.
Right. We're talking about Aquaman, listeners. I don't think we said that. I mean, you've inferred it. We got it from context, but still.
No,
we were
referring to we were referring to Sword in the Stone, listeners. Look it up.
I was thinking of just Jurassic World again. Remember that part when King Arthur showed up in Jurassic World? Wielded Excalibur.
Totally.
Got Excalibur to fight off the Indominus Rex.
Why have you not made this movie happen, Donald? This sounds like it's totally up your alley.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, no one cares about King Arthur. Every time they try to reboot it, I'm like, no one cares about King Arthur. Who cares?
Because the story is proved to be timeless. It is amazing. Whether it's done effectively
by
or
every
not.
movie that comes out about it bombing, but...
Well, I'm not saying that it's always effective. I'm just saying that it's always an amazing story.
Right. I suppose.
Anyway, yeah, this is why you like having people to, go with you to things so you can see their reactions.
Right, exactly. And if there's ever a Megazoic movie, I'm in the crowd and they start cheering or crying or laughing during certain points,
Well, of course that'd be a
I
thing.
will legitimately cry. Like, I will.
You will, yeah, I get that. Fun tangent off of that. If you create your own thing, there was an interview with one of the minds behind the musical Fiddler on the Roof. And he was doing his interview with, I guess there was a studio audience involved or something. And one of the things that he said was there was this song he was doing in the show. He was a little worried about how it would go over. And, when the audience responded in the way they did, he was moved to tears by it. Because he was just like, oh, good, it worked. It didn't fail us.
Right.
There might have also, if I'm remembering correctly, that was also a song that he subconsciously put some of his own, family background into the song, and it was the catharsis that he needed, and so that was another reason he was moved to tears. If I'm remembering correctly. But anyway, enough about Fiddler on the Roof.
Right, but that is a very emotional play, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it absolutely is. I loved it. I acted in it. Full disclaimer, but
nice.
Other than that, I always appreciate watching it. It's not a happy story.
No,
it really isn't.
It is not.
But it is a phenomenal show to be a part of, to witness. I kind of wish I knew the fiddle part because I do play violin, listeners. If you didn't know that by now, but it'd be really cool to learn that.
Keep in my mind confusing a fiddle with a flute. I know it's not the same, but I keep in my mind, whenever I imagine Fiddle on the Roof, I imagine a guy dancing while playing a flute. I'm like, that's not a fiddle.
That's the Pied Piper, but he's not on the roof. But anyway, let's move on then into, things that we've talked about, things that make us emotional, but how do you convey those things through writing?
Right, exactly. Well, how do you, David?
Well, I personally...
Oh, yeah.
love getting into my character's brain anyway.
Yes.
But particularly for these moments, these big ones that you want them to be huge emotionally, you need to process them yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
What I mean by that is maybe the character is based off of you. Maybe the reaction is the same to the way you do it, but just if you put yourself in the character's shoes, how would, quote unquote, you react?
Right.
In Shattered Creek, one of my former challenges, NaNoWriMo products,
Right,
I had
right.
to write the main character's father's funeral scene. By the way, about your funeral point earlier, sometimes it's not even called a funeral because they don't want it to be sad. They call it a celebration of life. That was
Right,
one of
exactly.
My grandfather's, for instance.
Yes.
Where he, the main character, volunteered a eulogy. I have dealt with a similar experience when my grandfather passed, so I tapped back into those emotions and wrote the, admittedly overlong,
I mean,
eulogy.
it's Nano.
It was Nano, but it brought out tears. As
Nice.
I was writing it, as I've read, every time I've reread that scene since, it still moves me to tears.
Aw. Nice.
Which, I mean, I'm grateful that it's still effective for me. I don't know how it'll go over for other people. You are your own first audience.
True.
So hopefully it works.
Right.
If it doesn't, maybe invest some more gravitas in the moment. Through the lens of your character reacting usually, or maybe even unusually thanks to some trauma.
Right.
You know, you don't deal with loss every day, especially if it's the first time you've experienced death in the family.
Right.
So would they react the same way they always do? Probably not.
Exactly.
It really helps to think of where your characters would go to channel grief, joy, those extreme emotions that are making these moments tear-jerking.
I agree that it's cool to like it's helpful to go think about where your characters are, but like I don't know, like I think that's really good. So what I try to do
Character
though,
study.
as well as like
I have always a proponent of character study, both for your own and for other successful stories, because you see what works.
oh yeah, well I think characters are a very 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 big thing as to why certain stories work and like why they get the audience they do. Like characters are so important. But like for me, for in terms of
Well, you follow the characters, not the plot, right?
Exactly. For emotion, to convey emotions through the way I convey emotions through my writing, I really describe the events and at certain focal points, like at the emotional climax, whether good or bad. Like for example, if I write a scene where the character reunites with their loved ones after a long, hard struggle, I dedicate several paragraphs just to the emotion the characters feel and have them reflect on it all took to get to this point. Like, I think it's like as well as getting into the characters there, and I do that there, but I really give the time, the moment, the time it deserves. So,
One thing that I want to clarify, and you're the perfect person to ask because you brought this up: does the emotional climax always coincide with the plot's climax?
certainly not. I'd say so. Like, sometimes it can, obviously, but sometimes it doesn't.
It can, but I don't think it has to.
It definitely doesn't have to. No, like,
Which is why I wanted to bring it up for our listeners' benefit as well.
Of course. Well, thank you. But in a more tragic example than a reunion, if a loved one dies in front of another character, have a few paragraphs of that person reflecting on the life of that character and all that they meant to them. Like, really, really give it the time. That's really what I think. Like, don't give it too much. Don't go wallow in it for too long. And,
Don't make the eulogy too long. But, you know,
Yeah.
if you don't give the moment time to breathe, then why is it there?
right, exactly.
It's almost like secondary consideration unless you give it the proper amount of time. Now, what proper may be, I suppose that depends on the moment in the story. As I said earlier, the emotional climax, if it ties in with the climax itself, he or she doesn't have the luxury of dwelling on this death before they have to go back to the battle, if it is a
Right.
battle.
Right, exactly.
But at the same time, you can't just gloss over the fact that this just happened
Yes.
to them, so impactful on them, or it's just, artificial.
Right.
It's just there when it doesn't even land,
Exactly. So speaking of proper, right?
Well, speaking of effective.
Or should I say improper and ineffective?
Or ineffective, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
hey. You're not the only one who can do this horrible segue shtick.
I was really impressed with you at first, and like you're talking about like proper. What is the proper way? I'm like, oh, I see where you're going with this because we got our notes here.
Yeah.
What are improper and/or ineffective ways to convey emotion through writing? That's what the
Alright,
document
well, I
says.
guess I'll-
And speaking
I
of
guess I'll
which,
go ahead.
what are improper and...
Now that we've officially over-adjusted for a segue. But anyway, we mentioned before that people react differently.
Right.
People have different scales of things that make them emotional or maybe unemotional, perhaps. Don't assume that everyone reacts identically to yourself or your main characters.
Right.
Reactions may be quite various depending on the situation. One person's death to a relative is tragic. To another person, if it's a hated rival, they're just like, all right, he's gone. I mean, maybe not so crassly, but
Right.
you get the idea. There is a fine line between having a joke to lighten a dark mood and being too abrupt to let the moment breathe.
Right.
Talked earlier about giving it time, letting it land, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Glossing over any reaction undermines all the work that came from that moment.
Right.
All the things leading up to this reunion, all the things leading up to the sacrifice in battle. You know, if you don't let someone react to it, it nullifies all of that work.
Right, exactly.
I'd recommend giving each emotional scene its own space.
Right, yes.
If you can't manage it, find a different beat for it.
Right.
Find a different place to put it. Maybe it doesn't fit at all. Maybe you have to take it out. If it's not a big plot point, if it's just a subplot that you wanted to resolve, then maybe it doesn't need to be resolved.
Maybe.
Maybe it doesn't need to be introduced.
Who knows?
There is always enough time for these things to impact your story if done right.
Right.
But boxing yourself in makes it just wrong.
Right. No, yeah, I get that. Definitely give things their own space. Like I said, to give it the time. And if there's not a point for it in the story that you have, then don't have it. So, but sort of like in my instance, for me, speaking of time, it's like making it quick. Like that's the bad way I do it. I think like giving the reader no time to understand the gravity of the situation. Like it's like, oh, this emotional thing happened. Oh, it's kind of sad.
Oh,
wait, it's over.
glossed over
It's
2
over.
pages
Oh,
later.
okay, never mind. I guess it wasn't that important then. So,
Exactly. You know, it undermines what you did.
right, exactly. Also, making the situations too contrived, like just to score some cheap tragedy points. Like, this is a random homeless person, aren't you sad?
50 if he's wearing rags.
Oh, the most disgusting rags you've ever seen. Or like
100 if he's got a poor little dog with him.
oh, the dog is so hungry, aren't you sad? Remember this story.
Sorry, we don't endorse scorekeeping on tragedies here.
Right. This story is by the way, it has nothing to do with either of those characters. It's just this guy walks towards an alley, he sees that, oh, and then he move on. Like that had nothing to do with the story, but cheap tragedy points.
Well, actually, there's a fun. I don't know if I ever told you about this particular nano project that I did. One guy, one of my main characters, sees this kid on the street and he's homeless, asking for help, and the guy tries to befriend him because he's like, oh, that'll definitely make things better if he has somebody to talk to, at least to share this pain with, you know. And it turns out that the guy is actually the son of rich kids and lives at a mansion. They're doing it simply to get more money.
Well,
Like, how are you supposed to feel about that?
Well, he's not getting what he wants there.
No, it was a really intriguing idea that I had one time for a nano project, and it unfortunately never went anywhere. I didn't get to the big reveal that the guy was loaded, but and to be fair, it was his parents telling him to do this. It wasn't that he
It wasn't his
had
own
any
idea.
desire to do it.
Okay.
They were just like trying to get more money to see mooch off of people's generosity for
Well, that's
people who are
not
holding
right.
signs by the side of the road. No, it's not right, and so I'm not sure how you're supposed to feel about it. But it was this really intriguing idea that I had one time. I'm just like, all right, let's try and make it work.
Intriguing
But anyway,
idea.
that
Why
was
don't you
that
try
was
it to get
scoring that was scoring cheap tragedy points.
Right, exactly.
In
Literally in the story at that
respects
point too. So like within
In the
these
respects
context
that
of the-
Donald's talking about.
Yes.
Anyway.
But on a related note to like it's sort of like the opposite of like having a big emotional payoff and then not giving enough time. This is where you give it the time at the end in terms of like you describe all that happened, but then it's completely unearned. Like there's been no time to dedicate to it beforehand at all. Like
So it just comes out of nowhere, but it's this huge thing.
it's like this side character.
Like there's no context.
Right, there's this side character, and then you find out that the side character got shot in like the, but like it was like a battle story anyway. So characters would die all the time. But then suddenly this side character, even though you've seen really nothing about him other than his name, the story dedicates so much time to just saying why this is such a sad thing, and you're like, why?
Oh no, we lost another red shirt.
That red shirt had a family. That red shirt had a dog who's now starved.
You found out his name half an hour ago. You're supposed to care about him.
And now the reader's like, why the hell are we what's going on here? Can we move on, please? It makes it seem like that the author cared more about this red shirt than the reader. So,
Well, I suppose in some cases that may have been true.
but like, for the true impact of the tear-jerking moments to be conveyed, the reader has to be shown all that came before it leading up to that moment, whether good or bad. So,
Exactly. I mean, if there's no build up, then there can't be a payoff.
right, exactly. So, but that's I think our ways of like talking about
Some
how to make
tipperoonies.
things right, emotional, tear-jerking moments. But just for a fun way to kind of end this, I thought it would be good if each of us list our personal favorite example of a tear-jerking moment in our own writing. So, I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Unsurprisingly, I'm going back to Shadow Creek because I
Well, of
really put
course.
my characters through the ringer there.
I've read Shadow
I mean,
Creek. He's not
one
lying.
character loses his younger sister. One watches her parents' marriage crumble before her eyes. Another nearly loses a brother in an accident. One guy loses his father to disease. But
Man.
within these things,
How many
like,
creeks have to be
emotional-
shattered in this story already? Come on. No.
Ha ha ha! It's the name of the town.
I know.
Anyway,
Well, I can see
my
why.
my favorite example in story writing is the aforementioned eulogy that I did.
Right.
One that is more personal, I suppose it's not, fiction writing, creative writing per se, is better for this instance, is like from a creative writing prompt that I had in college. The assignment's only limitation was start with the words, I remember, and work from there.
Right. That sounds interesting.
And, it wasn't a bad idea. Did I ever tell you what I wrote about when I did that assignment?
I don't think you did. Did you want to share it, or did you?
Well, I don't have time to share the whole thing, but I can tell you what I wrote about anyway. So I
Sure.
wrote about the time that my grandfather passed away.
Oh yeah, that's right. That makes sense.
And then I got done after running through several tissues and not even being able to see my computer screen. My eyes were so teary at some points. Like, I'm pretty well trained in typing, so I was still able to type without making too many mistakes or need for autocorrect.
Right.
Even though I couldn't see the screen clearly because I was just so emotional at this point.
Yeah.
But then after I got done with that, I'm just like, woo, that was great, catharsis. Let's do another.
Again.
So,
Another.
and so what I did was I started the next one with I remember, and when I was a senior in high school, I was in a homeroom class. It was a group of students. They were selected to be with you for the entirety of your high school career, and
Right.
one of the kids in that class committed suicide.
Oh, that's right. I remember this.
And so I remember, well, I said in this creative writing prompt thing, I remember when he committed suicide, basically, and talked about that. And at the time, I tried not accessing my emotions such that I could be, supportive to other people who needed a shoulder to lean on, shoulder
Right.
to cry on, an ear to listen, whatever it was. But I never dealt with the emotions on my own. And I guess the same thing kind of happened with my grandfather. Like, speaking it as celebration of life, still didn't really process the emotional impact of losing my grandfather, who I
Right.
absolutely cherished.
No, I remember.
And so,
Yeah.
and so, like, getting through both of those, I didn't cry as much because he wasn't a family member, and I guess it hadn't been quite as long either. But
Right.
it was also cathartic.
Right.
I coped with a lot of emotions I didn't realize that I had simply penned up for all that time.
Yeah, exactly.
In the
Man.
end, and so that a very, very personal example, but
Did you want me to cut this out or of the recording?
no, it's fine.
I can leave this
No,
in.
it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you can leave it in.
Just wanted to make
But
sure.
since none of this stuff is actually published, I guess pass on this section.
I mean, it's our own writing. It doesn't have to be published.
Yeah, no. It was very cathartic. It was a lot of fun.
Right. Well, fun. Yeah.
Well, okay, fun in the sense that I needed to deal with it, and that was a very good forum for doing so.
Yeah.
Like nobody was going to judge me. I was able to do I practically went through half of a tissue box that day. It was wonderful.
Nice.
An entire tissue box, which usually come with like 250 tissues or whatever. I went through like half of that.
A bit excessive.
In a day.
It's a bit excessive. Come on.
It was.
Shut up.
It was. Well, as I said, I know
Get
when to
over
cry
it.
because
Nah.
real men know when to cry. But anyway,
Yeah, all right.
none of this stuff is published. It is my own writing, so I guess it counts. But
It does
It's not
count,
like
I
it's
say.
out there. So I guess I will pass and throw it to you. What's
Well,
your
thank
favorite
you.
example?
Well, for my published stuff, I guess. Actually, I have a better one. That's not, actually, I have a better one that wasn't published, and I think I'm going to say it instead because it's not a spoiler for a book,
Oh, okay.
a Megazoic
Well.
book.
Oh, fine. You just want to avoid my comment, don't you?
That and okay. Okay, you know what? There was a scene in the long-running joke we have of this show of me explaining a story without knowing what it is. In Wildlife of Tomorrow, I wrote a sequel, and
Oh, jeez. We're still not going to explain it, are we?
I knew that I would just want to keep writing sequels forever. So
Wow.
the way I stopped myself from doing it is I said, okay, I'm gonna kill off the main character and make it plot relevant and make it
Yep.
and so I did. And the scene I wrote of this main character's death it's pretty heartbreaking. Like he's with all of his friends. He just recently broke up with his girlfriend, but she's
Yeah.
there, and so she doesn't really know how to feel other than just sad still, of course. But and also it's sad, but at the same time it's also kind of like heartwarming in a way, like bittersweet, just because he lost
Sure.
his parents in the first book at the very, very beginning, and so he finally
Right.
gets to like reunite with them. And like also it's sad in terms of other ways, is that like he is the last of his kind. He is of a species of creature where he is the only one left, and so when he dies, the species is extinct. So
True.
yeah, so there's a lot to it, and I remember I nearly cried while writing it. And I actually, as much as I talk about how I'm empathetic and I'm emotional, I don't cry that much.
No, you don't.
Like, there's only 3 movies I've ever cried at before.
Wasn't it one of them American Tail?
No, actually.
Or was it the other Don Bluth, Land Before Time?
Nope. You want to know them?
Sure, go for it.
October Sky is one of them.
Didn't that star Jake Gyllenhaal
It
way
did.
back when he was still
It did.
somewhat young?
Throughout the entire movie, basically, he gets approval from his father, despite his father being like the worst person to him for a while, not really caring about him. But then he finally gets approval from him. Like, his father realizes the errors of his ways. He sees what Jake Gyllenhaal's done, and then he puts his hand on his son's shoulder, and it just always makes me well up. Like,
Fair enough.
and-
I could see that making you. I haven't seen that movie, so.
the other one, Phantom of the Opera.
Other one?
Well, the other two.
One? I thought you said there was- yeah, I was
another
gonna
one
say.
of them, Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, what part?
The part at the end when after Christine's died and it's a flash forward and you see them old, and then you find out that the Phantom left a rose by her grave.
Oh, yeah.
That part is so sad. It just shows that he never stopped loving her
Never stopped caring.
Yeah.
You're right.
up to the end.
Well, yeah.
Like, oh man.
Past the end.
Yeah, exactly.
There's actually a lesser known sequel musical to Phantom
Yes,
of the
Love
Opera,
Never
by the way, in case you
Dies,
didn't
which I've heard is
okay,
the worst.
The music is great. I don't know so much about the actual production, but
Right.
The music was great.
Well, this is based on the movie where Love Never Dies as non-canon. Also, I think Love Never Dies came out after this movie came out. So.
Oh yeah, it did. No, absolutely.
So this movie treats it as if it didn't happen. So.
Love Never Dies is a
Anyways, the
very
final one.
intriguing story. Look it up, listeners. It's fun.
The final one. I'm very embarrassed about this final one.
Oh, jeez.
Star Wars: Revenge of the Sith.
The part where he's fighting Kenobi on Mustafar?
No, that part's awesome, but also kind of sad. But like the
Well, sad, but so you're talking about where he leaves Padme behind then?
well, when Padme dies and Obi-Wan is seeing this woman die while holding Luke and Leia, who are still crying because they're in need, and and
I can understand why that got you.
and Padme's last breath coincides like practically scene by scene with Vader's first breath.
First breath, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it really shows that
That was a narrative choice. You know it was.
well, exactly, and that Vader literally killed Padme.
Well, I mean,
and
okay,
like-
not
well, not,
that one's less literal,
but like.
you know, the idea that it was also the last thing tethering him to Anakin.
Well, actually, the part that also makes me really sad in that movie is, like, you know, Obi-Wan has talked about, like, how, you know, Anakin is his brother and that he shouldn't have felt so emotional for him because Jedi aren't supposed to be emotional, but he's like, I loved you. And, like, and then when he drops Luke off to his aunt and uncle, and you see him just kind of watch them carry off the baby for a bit, and you can see in his eyes he's reflecting on, like,
You literally see reflections in his eyes?
Well, like well, probably the double sunset.
I'm kidding.
The double sunset is right in front of him, so probably. And he's reflecting on all that he's lost, and he's like, and also the knowledge that while you know he lived on through the Force and all that crap, Obi-Wan never lived to see Anakin's redemption, and that's just sad to me.
True.
So
yeah, and I know that you're on record as not really liking the new Star Wars very much. But
right,
I think he doesn't mean you.
I don't really like.
You didn't dislike the old ones though.
I didn't. I disliked. I didn't really care for Attack of the Clones. Although I did like the ending part is really cool. All the different spaceships and all the other stuff and the battle for Geonosis.
Anyways, in a spoiler-free cast for what he was going to talk about from the Hunted Ones, buy it on Amazon.com.
Megazoic, the Hunted Ones. Yep.
Yeah, sorry, not for saying it right. But anyway,
that's okay.
Quen was involved in this moment, and she's not a very emotional character, so that gives you an idea of how desperate the times may or may not be. But if you're desperate to find out, why don't you go and buy it?
Yeah, go and buy it and find out.
Read it for yourself.
And soon, you'll get to buy Megazoic and Eris End.
Oh, jeez.
All right.
One thing that I do want to mention, though, he did not talk about the moment, so I won't spoil anything more for that. But there was one thing that he said this is the most tear-jerking moment in his writing, although he came up with a different one for, obviously, the episode we just did. But I was going to say it didn't even draw tears from me. So
oh, you really wanted to say this comment no matter what.
Well, I wanted to say it.
You wanted to
remind
remind everyone that my moment didn't make you cry because you're a hard ass and you don't have any emotions.
That's not the reason I'm bringing it
All
up.
right,
if you'd
fine.
let me finish, because it's proof that you write it that way to tell your story. You cannot predict the outcome on your audience. The moment was very heavy.
Well, thanks.
I didn't cry. It was very heavy. So, you know, he's right. It had its own weight in the story. There's a reason it's there. No, I would never dream there wasn't. But it was it may bring some people to tears, and I can understand why. I was not one of them. However, that doesn't mean it's not an effective moment. So write your moments.
What a ringing
The
endorsement.
ones you want to tell.
Buy the Hunted Ones
I do try.
on Amazon.com. Ding!
How many different dings have we done for that?
I'm
same
gonna
book
leave that
already this
sarcastic
episode?
one there, just without editing.
Ding.
Just like ding, I guess.
I was was trying to be kind, but anyway.
Trying to be kind. But this
that's-
sad moment didn't make me cry.
Well, it hasn't made either of us cry. But
Yeah, I guess
anyways,
that's true.
if you'd like to ask us questions about tear-inducing moments, maybe you need a suggestion for your story, you are always welcome to send us an email. So let's go ahead and use that to
Yes.
talk about how to get a hold of us.
Yeah, how to get a hold of
And
us.
that email
Send us an
is
email.
Matt D with 2 T's at MatthewDonaldCreator.com. Your own email, or you can use the contact page on the Matthew Donald Creator website as well.
Yes, you can. I actually did get an email from someone. It wasn't about the podcast, it was about my book. So it works.
We can prove it works.
I can
Well, we
prove
already
it-
read off questions. We already read off questions before, didn't we?
Oh, that's right.
Consistency.
The only thing I'm consistent at is being inconsistent. So.
Please download the Writ on iTunes, on Libsyn from the website. Give us a like and review if you do it through iTunes, please.
do.
It's always helpful for the podcast. If you have any helpful tips for the newbies who you may be better than, even if we're better than you, then please let us know. We'd love to share your comments on the air if you'll let us do so.
Yes, of course.
Also, professional media.
Yes, for me.
Professional
Yes,
social
yes.
media stuffs for Donald.
Follow
So
me
what you
at
got?
Facebook at Matthew Donald Creator, or Twitter at MatthewDonald64, or Instagram at MatthewDonald64. Why 64? Because dead puppies, lost loved ones, wasted effort, lack of purpose, and peeled onions. Talk about
Okay.
sympathy points or tragedy.
Yeah, sympathy points, indeed.
64
You're
is
right.
nowhere in there, but
How many times you cried seeing The Notebook? Right.
I have never seen The Notebook, which must be proof that I've never had a girlfriend, because everyone who's had a girlfriend has
not
had their
true.
girlfriends made them
Not true. We've talked about it. But anyway.
Their girlfriends
also,
anyone who's had a girlfriend has had their girlfriends made them watch The Notebook.
my girlfriend didn't. But anyway.
You should have held on to her tight and never let her go. Nah, it's fine.
Well, apparently.
It was a big issue. We're not getting into it.
Also, out of recording real quick, do you have the YouTube channel up such that we should mention it here?
I do not have the YouTube channel up. I'm sorry.
I told you we're not doing weekly until you do it. So
Well, it's not going to be until
Get
about
on
the
that.
8th or so, or the 10th.
get on that.
We'll get on. All right. Bless you.
Excuse me.
I'm leaving that in.
Why?
You get the real content here, listeners.
Keep it for the outtakes, right?
You can't tell me what to do.
I'm suggesting. I'm not telling you you
Yeah.
have to do anything.
That's just true. We don't.
Anyways, well, that's it for us on tear jerking moments, listeners. If you
my
have any
tissue box
questions,
is completely
concerns,
empty, guys. This has been a real effort.
other episode ideas for us, please let us know.
Yeah.
We mentioned there were some technical difficulties here. Small look ahead. We may be doing some changing of how things process here. So, keep tuned in to find out more.
Yes, exactly.
But until next month, listeners,
Keep writing.
keep those pens writing. And us two at the Writ with the two twits who talk about writing are all twitted out. So
I'm Matt Donald.
I'm Matt David.
Yes, twitted out indeed.
You already said
Yeah.
your name, so you're
Yeah.
good. Until next month, listeners, thanks for checking in to the Writ, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
The Writ.